Indigenous Americans, also known as Native Americans, are best known for being endemic to North America, Meso-America, the Caribbean, and South America. However, outside of aspects of their culture, including material culture, most people know little about them, particularly their affinities between one another and other populations. In this video, we will be discussing theories relating to their origins and utilizing osteological, bioarchaeological, and genetic facts to ascertain Native Americans' origins. Before we delve into the aforementioned facts, we will first talk about historical accounts. In 1485, an Italian explorer, Christopher Columbus, made a plan to visit the East Indies to capitalize on the then bustling spice trade. Although passionate about this plan, when he brought this proposal to the Portuguese, he was initially rejected. It was not until 1492 that his plan to sail to the East Indies was finally accepted. Not long after, Columbus, accompanied by the Spaniards, began his trek to the East Indies. Once Columbus landed on the presumed East Indies, he met with natives on this new land. However, unbeknownst to him, he had not landed in the East Indies, but a land known as Guanahani, now known as the Bahamas. Columbus described these people as timid due to their peaceful and nonviolent nature. The Lucayans, as they were called, were a subgroup of the Greater Taino ethno-linguistic group, who spanned the Caribbean from Bahamas to the north, Colombia to the south, Cuba to the west, Puerto Rico to the east, and many other islands in between. The Lucayans possessed a matrilineal culture, thereby tracing one's ancestry through the mother's side and inheriting her clan affiliation. They were also known for their intricate weaving skills, body adornment, and pottery-making traditions. This marked the beginning of the Western world's introduction to the Americas. Eventually, the Spaniards expanded and colonized many parts of the Caribbean, North America, Meso-America, and South America. Contemporaneous to this, their Iberian Peninsula brethren, the Portuguese, colonized Brazil. Then, in the late 16th century, the British marked their first appearance in the territory now known as the United States. All early European parties forever altered the indigenous way of life throughout the Americas. In late July of 1996, a hiker made a shocking discovery that would eventually grasp the interest of the scientific community. The individual discovered skeletal remains near the Columbus River in Kennewick, Washington. After notifying authorities, the remains would eventually cross the path of anthropologists. Upon first examination, they deduced the remains were decades old and were of European origin. Radiocarbon dating later found the remains to be approximately 8,000 years old. Despite this revelation, anthropologist Jim Spatters contended the skull possessed Caucasian features and bared a strong resemblance to actor Patrick Stewart. However, representatives in the Native American community debated this and believed Kennewick Man was actually a fellow Native American. Despite the various conflicts, anthropologist Jim Spatters was adamant Kennewick Man was still Caucasian in origin. Found in 1970 in a Pedro Leopoldo Brazilian cave, a peculiar skull piqued scientists' interest. According to anthropologists, this was unlike any skull they had ever seen before within the indigenous communities of Brazil. It belonged to a female that they later named Louisa. What made Louisa unique compared to other Native Americans is that she possessed a more narrow skull and a projecting face, including a particularly prominent chin. Based on this analysis, anthropologists deduced that Louisa was likely related to both Australian Aborigines and Melanesians. Then, after multiple reconstructions of her facial features were completed, it was certain to anthropologists that Louisa represented a previously unknown community that had affinities to Oceanic people. Alternatively, individuals in the African diaspora believe Louisa is proof of a theorized indigenous community akin to various black populations worldwide. Did Louisa represent an Australian Aboriginal or Melanesian that drifted to the Americas? From the 17th century until the late 20th century, scientists used now obsolete racial classifications for various worldwide populations. They included Caucasoid, Negroid, Australoid, and Mongoloid. The Caucasoid community included Europeans, people in the Middle East, North Africans, and South Asians. In this group, individuals possess aquiline features, an abundance of body hair, and straight to wavy hair. The Negroid race included sub-Saharan Africans and Melanesians. Among this group, they traditionally possessed narrow skulls, thicker and broader facial features, dark skin, and thick, tightly coiled hair. People of the Australoid race included Australian Aborigines, the Aboriginal Veda of Sri Lanka, and various hunter-gatherer communities in India and Southeast Asia. This group shared dark brown to chocolate skin, thick wavy to curly hair, broad facial features, and prominent brow ridges. Finally, the Mongoloid race consisted of inhabitants of East Asia, Southeast Asia, parts of remote Oceania, and Native Americans. This brings us to the theory that Native Americans are related to East Asians. Within this proposed Mongoloid group, representatives tend to possess straight black hair that is scant on the face and body, instances of epicanthic folds or double eyelids, and prominent cheekbones. In addition, multiple studies have revealed both East Asian and Native American populations possessing the Mongoloid spot, which is a dark blue birthmark that is visible on the buttocks on individuals during the younger years. However, is this enough to link Native Americans to Asians? Just which group of the aforementioned groups are Native Americans most similar to, given the discoveries? I must reiterate that the racial terms Mongoloid, Caucasoid, Negroid, and Australoid are now obsolete within the anthropology community. The reason for me utilizing these terms in this video was to explain the early history of anthropology and how using these terms were crucial to classify worldwide populations. We previously talked about Kennewick man's remains and how an anthropologist was certain that this skull was of Caucasian origin. However, further analysis and reconstruction of the skull has shown that it is not significantly dissimilar to other Native American communities in North America. In addition, omitting miscegenation with other groups of people over the centuries, Native Americans possess the following mitochondrial DNA haplogroups: A, B, C, D, and X. Regarding y-chromosomes, they possess haplogroups C and Q. After genetic analysis via aDNA, Kennewick man was revealed to possess mitochondrial DNA X2 and y-chromosome haplogroups Q, which are both found in abundance among contemporary Native American populations. As we all know, the enigmatic Luiza skull from Brazil brought a lot of attention to the anthropology community due to its resemblance to both Australian Aboriginal and Melanesian populations. Many anthropologists were astonished about the possibility of an ancient group of Australians who drifted to South America. However, mitochondrial DNA testing concluded Luiza belonged to haplogroup D4, which is common among indigenous Brazilian communities who reside in the vicinity of where her remains were found. In addition, comparison of her physical reconstruction showed an uncanny resemblance to indigenous communities in Brazil, including this woman. Anthropologists assert that skull shapes and phenotypes are not a definitive proof of affinities between populations, but instead genetics are. However, Native Americans display both physical similarities and genetic similarities to Asians. The physical similarities are not only apparent with eye shapes, similar hair textures, and prominent cheekbones, but also with dental morphology. In many Asian populations, there are individuals who fit under the Sinadont dental type and Sinadont dental type. Sinadont teeth are named after the Sunda Sea in Indonesia and are common among Southeast Asian populations, while Sinadont teeth are named after China and are common among Northeast Asian populations and are distinguished from Sinadont teeth because of their characteristic shovel-shaped incisors. This type of dental morphology is common among Native Americans. With physiognomical similarities, including dental morphology, as well as mitochondrial DNA and y-chromosome haplogroups, individuals in the anthropology community are certain Native Americans are not only distantly related to East Asian populations, but originated from Paleolithic populations in Siberia approximately 20,000 years before present. With all the facts presented, as mentioned before, similarities in phenotypes alone does not legitimize any claims that phenotypically similar populations are akin to one another. Genetic similarities instead helps to substantiate any kinship between populations. When populations show phenotypical similarities, but with little to no genetic similarities, it may be indicative of convergent evolution, which stems from unrelated organisms who independently evolve on similar lines in similar environments. Taking this into account, there is no proof of any close relationship between Indigenous Americans with Europeans, Australian Aborigines, Melanesians, or African or Black populations worldwide.